click on the WWNN TV link.
When you need an aggressive, experienced, and knowledgeable criminal or DUI defense attorney, turn to the law firm of Leader & Leader, PA. With nearly 80 years of combined experience, Michael D. Leader is a former prosecutor with considerable experience, not just in all areas of criminal law, but also DUI defense. Michael Leader has dedicated his entire practice to the art of defeating DUI and criminal cases for a period of time. The criminal and DUI defense law firm of Leader & Leader, PA has a remarkable track record. They develop a close working relationship with each of their clients prior to deciding how to proceed with your case in order to tailor the approach and defense to each individual client and their needs. They are always available to their clients. At Leader & Leader, they offer every type of criminal defense, including DUI, federal drug charges, white-collar crime or fraud cases, theft offenses, violations of probation or early termination, and all other criminal matters from investigation to trial. Let the criminal and DUI law firm of Leader & Leader, PA explore all of your options. Call them today at 954-523-2020. That's 954-523-2020. Or go to their website at criminallawleader.com. Do not take chances when it comes to your freedom or the possibility of jail or prison time. Free in-office or telephone consultations for all criminal matters. Do not hesitate. Call the Criminal Law Leader today, 954-523-2020.
And we're back. What a show today.
It really is.
First tax relief and now our criminal law show.
So let's welcome to the studio Michael Leader with the law firm Leader & Leader.
And if you want to watch this show, all you have to do is go to www.criminallawleader.com. The show's on there live right now. And you can actually go back later on and watch the show also. And the purpose of this show is you never know if you're going to get in trouble or not. You never know if you're going to be pulled over by the police. I mean, even if you've never been arrested in your life before. So it's really important that you listen today and take down Michael's phone number and his website. So let's welcome Michael Leader.
Thank you,
Welcome
guys.
to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be back. I appreciate you having me.
This is another one of those firms that I just, everything, all we did when we were looking at different law firms, I didn't see anything negative about Leader & Leader on there. So I said, this firm's got to be good because there's always someone out there is complaining about something. But it was really good having,
it's funny you
like
say that. I mean, there's a lot of accolades that lawyers can get, and I've been honored and recognized in a lot of different ways, and some of them mean things, and some of them are nice, and they look important to clients, but the one thing that I'm most proud of, and I'm going to knock wood saying this.
I love that you did that.
I've been doing this approximately 16 years, counting my internship time in the state attorney's office, and I don't know anybody that's been practicing as long as I've been practicing in criminal law that hasn't had some sort of grievance. And I'm not saying that it was justified, but typically people in criminal and family especially do not go through a career without grievances from clients because they're upset, they're frustrated, even if it's not the lawyer's fault.
Right, if they didn't get off on a particular
I've
crime.
never had a grievance from a client in my career.
That's wonderful.
Anything like that. I attribute it to being honest, upfront, being straight with my clients, not sugarcoating things, not telling them what they want to hear to hire me, and then all of a sudden things change. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I work hard for my clients. We get good results. We're honest with them. But, it's funny you say that because it's the thing that I'm probably most proud of in the area that I practice and the fact that
because we do
happened.
a search. I mean, these are... Michael can't say this, but we can. These are the top experts in their field.
Exactly.
So we always do a search. It would be horrible, be embarrassing. But you're right, though. I mean, some of the attorneys we have, they had a few grievances. I didn't find
which is not
on
right.
you.
Which is not uncommon.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Why don't you give out the phone number if anybody has a question for Michael? They could call us.
okay. It's
888-565-1470.
You've got so many radio shows.
Steve, you mentioned something else that I think is really timely and appropriate, especially for my practice. You said you never know when something's going to happen to you. You never know when you can be stopped.
Exactly.
In the last week and a half, I've had 3 cases where I've helped people. There's a difference between being innocent and not guilty. Being that innocent, you didn't do it. Not guilty means the state can't prove their case, all right?
Okay.
There's a big difference. I've had 3 people that I genuinely believe were not guilty, should never have been charged. It was love triangles, it was an angry person, whatever the case may be. And so far, 2 of the 3 we've already had exonerated. We've kept criminal charges from being filed at all because we were extremely aggressive and proactive. We jumped on it right away. But just I would say in the last 10 days, I've had 3 cases like that. Some people with no criminal history, they never imagined in a million years sitting here at this time today that they would need a criminal lawyer. And then by the next morning, they were calling me because something happened that they could never have fathomed or imagined.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, you don't ever say it can't happen to me. You can't ever say it. So what we want to make sure, first of all, we want to make sure that you write Michael's phone number down. Give him your phone number at your office.
954-523-2020, and we can be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Tell everybody the types of cases you handle.
Yep. Well, I have. I don't lump it together. I am a criminal defense attorney. I do everything from minor traffic criminal to major federal drug trafficking cases. But in addition to that, not a lot of people lump it as part of criminal defense. To me, it's separate. I am a DUI defense attorney. There was a period of my career that I did nothing but DUI defense. I was recruited out of the state attorney's office by what was then arguably the most preeminent DUI defense firm in the country. In fact, the man that trained me was the guy that created the concept of DUI defense. It didn't exist before him. He wrote the book. He's unfortunately no longer with us, but a lot of what I know and a lot of the way I break down cases and the way I've developed my career in defense and DUI is predicated upon that initial training. I thought when I left the state, I've handled thousands of these. I can pick these apart. I know what I'm doing. And I spent a couple months learning from this guy, and I realized I would have been abysmal when I left the state if I just tried to defend these cases without that additional training and learning how to really truly break down a DUI case. And it's really an art, and I consider what I do the art of defending, the art of winning a DUI case. And it's dissecting the case and knowing the right way to do it.
That's why it's very important who you select to handle your cases, because you see a lot of attorneys, and I've said this to you before, that handle personal injury and criminal law and
like a
DUI.
boutique of,
Exactly. You want somebody that's going to specialize in the problem that you have. And what's the difference between a criminal defense and DUI? I mean, what's the difference between that?
No, I'm glad you asked. DUIs are criminal offenses, so
Right.
Don't get me wrong. They're absolutely criminal. In fact, DUIs have the worst statutory penalties of any misdemeanor there is. I mean, you could get caught with felony offenses that are much more serious and walk away with a much lesser penalty because there's incredible statutory penalties that are minimum mandatories for DUI in Florida, greatly because of the power of certain lobby groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving,
Yes.
things like that have developed over the years. And if you go in and plea or you're convicted of a DUI, even as a first-time offender, it's a permanent conviction. You can never get rid of it, never get it off your record, never get anything else sealed or
Wow.
expunged. And you're looking at thousands of dollars in fines, expenses, probation, community service, license suspensions, vehicle immobilizations.
For first offense.
First offense, devices in your car that you have to blow into, community service. I mean, all of this stuff, not one or the other. All of these things are part of the statutory guidelines. $1,000 to $2,000 fines on a first offense if it's enhanced. $480 in court costs, roughly. I mean, it will cost you thousands, plus your insurance could go up 300 to 500% for 3 to 5 years. So getting convicted of a DUI could easily end up costing you over a 3-year period $4,000 to $8,000 on a first offense.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy.
So, okay, do you handle Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County?
You know, I generally I am in all 3 of those counties. In fact, I would say the last couple weeks it's been pretty evenly split. I was in Palm Beach this morning. I'll be in Broward tomorrow. I was in Dade 2 or 3 times last week. However, for federal cases and DUIs, I'm available all around the state. DUIs, I do get hired all over the state. It does cost people more outside of Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach to hire me because of the time involved, the travel.
But it's worth it for them.
Listen, I could tell you I've won my last 1 million cases, and it doesn't mean that I'd win yours, but my track record on cases out of area, a lot of people think, I only want a local lawyer. And a lot of times, for certain situations, that's true.
But not for that.
Because there's no discretion in DUIs, it's all about the guidelines anyway. So the prosecutor can't really offer a better plea of the local guy than they can me because there's minimums. There's required minimums. I found that I've been very effective. And actually, just about every out-of-area case I've handled, I've had good outcomes for my clients. So
The guidelines change by county?
No. They're statutory by the state.
Okay.
Some
Wow.
counties may have other, like a judge or a county, they may do something. For example, there was a judge in Palm Beach that was requiring every DUI plea in his courtroom, even on a first offense, you had to do 90 A meetings in 90 days. And his position was, if you got arrested, there must be something. There are motions to recuse him from DUI cases because of his attitude about that. He ended up leaving the division after, 20 some odd years. So we don't really have that with too many judges here in South Florida anymore. But certain counties and certain judges have their own little idiosyncrasies, things that they'll require on every case.
Okay, so the biggest question I have is, so if you're pulled over and somebody and a police officer suspects that you've been drinking, should you agree to do the breathalyzer?
Okay, so this is a tough question, and we touched on this last week, and let me talk about this a little bit.
And talk about the different types of testings, too.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing when the officer makes contact with you, they have to be able to articulate a reasonable basis for suspicion of DUI, not just odor of alcohol. There has to be more. So the first thing they're generally going to ask you to do is roadside exercises.
Which is what?
When you hear about people walking the line, finger to nose, that kind of thing, right? Now, people think these are based on your physical performance, and they're really not. They're called divided attention exercises. I'm not a big fan of them because when I was a prosecutor, I had the most experienced DUI officer in the Broward County at the time. He was on the DUI task force for Broward Sheriff's Office. I had him administer the exercises to me in the office. When he finished, he started chuckling. I said, "What's so funny?"
You failed? Did you fail?
He said, "I would have taken you to jail."
Wow, that's scary,
incredible.
though.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
Now, at the time, I was more than 50 pounds overweight, so they weren't validated for me, but most officers will still do them. I have physical injuries to, at the time, I didn't have my ankle injury, but I had knee injuries from playing football. So, I mean, I had some minor issues, but, it was incredible to me. And I've seen clients that I've known or believed not to be impaired that have been arrested, and it depends on the officer administering them. Most officers that I depose and cross-examine, you talk about the guidelines that they're supposed to be following set by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, otherwise known as NHTSA, and you ask them about the guidelines and what do you look for in this exercise? How many things do you need to validate it? Most of them can't even answer the question.
But what happens if you decline?
So here's the tricky part, right? They're supposed to tell you if you decide not to do these exercises, I'm going to have to base my decision on what I've seen so far. They're not allowed to say if you don't do them, I'm going to arrest you, but they basically say if you don't do them, I'm going to arrest you.
So do they arrest you if you decline?
Frequently they will, and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because it's just like if an officer asks you, do you know why I stopped you? And if you say no, he gives you the ticket for speeding, but if you're honest, maybe he won't. Every officer's different,
right.
So I can't tell you because I don't know who's stopping you, what their attitude is, and how they're going to respond, and that's why it's a problem. But I generally would say this. I am not, if it were me, and I don't drink and drive. I may have a single drink knowing what the measured amount of the drink was, maybe in the course of a night, but I don't do it. My parents, when I was a kid, got through to me.
It's a smart thing to do, not drink and drive.
And I know the expense and cost of it. So it's something I personally don't do.
Right.
But with that being said, if I got pulled over and I was asked to do them knowing I hadn't even drank, I probably wouldn't do them because of the experience I had where I was I was much younger than I am now, and I failed in the office in the middle of the day.
But then you get arrested.
Right? But I rather do that, especially if it would also matter to me if they're being videotaped or not. And not most people in your situation aren't going to know how to identify, or they're going to be afraid to ask the officer, are you videotaping this? If it was videotaped, I would probably be less concerned and I may be inclined. But the problem is, if you've had one or two drinks and you're not sure, you're probably better off not, because there's a lot of reasonable explanations. And what I always tell people is this. You be polite, you be respectful, you say as little as possible. I generally don't recommend making any admissions to drink your anything, but that comes into another tricky point because
sometimes you can smell like liquor.
Right, if the officer smells it and you say no, then he thinks you're lying, and then that may be one of those guys where I was going to give him a break, but now I'm taking him to jail. So you just don't know is the problem. However, I believe in saying as little as possible, and if it were me, I would say, officer, listen, I feel like you're accusing me of something here. If you're asking me to do roadsides, you're basically accusing me, or in your mind you think that I'm an impaired driver. And I know I've done nothing wrong. I feel like I'm being wrongfully accused, so I'm going to ask to speak to my attorney before I do anything else.
And they're going to take you to prison.
And they're going to
so that's the scariest thought, because people are driving and may have had a drink and know that they're not impaired, and then they're afraid to go to prison. I mean, I'd be petrified.
Well, it's jail, not prison. There is a difference. But
okay.
Yeah, you would spend a night. You would spend a night in jail, and you would spend at least 8 hours before they can release you.
That's not
So, I mean, the problem is this. I would tell them respectfully, I don't think I've done anything wrong. They're going to say you don't have a right to an attorney at the roadside, and that is correct. But I would tell them, I understand that's what you're telling me, but until I have a chance to speak to my lawyer, I'm going to respectfully decline to do anything. And I understand that you're doing your job, but I feel like I'm being falsely accused, and I'm going to respectfully decline to do anything.
I have to put Michael's phone number in my cell phone.
And as far as the breath test, you asked about that. It's a whole different issue. Now, what you need to understand is, at the point they're asking you for a breath test, under Florida law, you're under arrest already. You're not going to be unarrested.
Really?
You're still being booked and spending the night in jail. With the old machine they used to use in Florida, 5000, I never remember seeing a breath reading in a case where I said, there's no way. This just can't make sense to me. I don't believe it. They switched, God, I lose track of how many years it is now, 5 years, maybe 7 years, somewhere in that ballpark, to the Intoxilizer 8000 series in Florida, which is now the machine used and approved in Florida. I have seen at least 25 cases, at least, where based on hard facts and evidence that I knew, there was no way that I could reconcile the breath test result and what my client had to consume based on a number of factors and evidence that I believe to be reliable. So I've had too many cases where I question the value and generally the scientific principles and the way these things work. There is a reasonable basis of accuracy, or can be, to them. But I've seen too many things that cause me too much concern. So it's a misdemeanor in Florida to refuse a breath test for a second time. So I can't give people blanket advice to refuse, because I'd be advising them to break the law.
For a second time. How
Right.
about the first time? So you could refuse the first time.
It's a case-by-case analysis, and what I tell you is this. If you know that you had literally one bottle of Bud Light with a dinner and nothing else to drink, I would say you should absolutely blow, because there's no way you could be blown over unless the machine is completely broken. Because you got to remember, drinks are not a glass. People think of them like a glass.
Right.
You get a Long Island iced tea, and we talked about this, I think, last time.
We did.
Or you'd even just get a vodka tonic. The bartender, you don't see them pour it, may have 3 ounces, not 1 ounce of vodka. So you've really had 3 drinks, not 1. So if you know what your measured drink is, what you actually had to drink, and you're able, and you know you feel fine, maybe you want to blow. But if you have doubts, I feel it's better to have a refusal than a reading over the limit in defending my clients.
Let's go to break, and when we come back, I want to talk to Michael about when you're pulled over. Look at all the things going on in the news. Some lady wouldn't show any ID, and another one was arguing with the police. They just got pulled over. So, listen, we never know when it's going to happen. So I want to talk about that when we come back.
Perfect.
Okay, listen to this.
When you need an aggressive, experienced, and knowledgeable criminal or DUI defense attorney, turn to the law firm of Leader & Leader, PA. With nearly 80 years of combined experience, Michael D. Leader is a former prosecutor with considerable experience, not just in all areas of criminal law, but also DUI defense. Michael Leader has dedicated his entire practice to the art of defeating DUI and criminal cases for a period of time. The criminal and DUI defense law firm of Leader & Leader, PA has a remarkable track record. They develop a close working relationship with each of their clients prior to deciding how to proceed with your case in order to tailor the approach and defense to each individual client and their needs. They are always available to their clients. At Leader & Leader, they offer every type of criminal defense, including DUI, federal drug charges, white-collar crime or fraud cases, theft offenses, violations of probation or early termination, and all other criminal matters from investigation to trial. Let the criminal and DUI law firm of Leader & Leader, PA explore all of your options. Call them today at 954-523-2020. That's 954-523-2020. Or go to their website at criminallawleader.com. Do not take chances when it comes to your freedom or the possibility of jail or prison time. Free in-office or telephone consultations for all criminal matters. Do not hesitate. Call the Criminal Law Leader today, 954-523-2020.
And we're back. Well, let me tell you something. I love when Michael comes on the show because, first of all, we know he's such a reputable attorney.
And he truly is an expert in his field.
But you know what? When it comes to criminal law, like any other kind of law, you kind of have an idea. You never know what's going to happen to you when it comes to criminal law.
Right.
I
And
mean,
you need
might have
somebody
only
that's
had one
honest
drink.
and reputable.
And
Yes.
we got the holidays coming up. We got Christmas coming up. With those New Year's Eve parties. I mean, let me tell you something. I want you right now, because you never know. You don't want to just call someone. We don't use the yellow pages anymore.
Or
we
Google
use,
somebody, right.
But write Michael's phone number down. Your number is the office.
954-523-2020. 2020, and we offer free consultations and
24/7.
24/7. You have a problem. Obviously, if it's not an emergency, it's not pressing, you don't have an arrest, you just have a question. I prefer you not
Yes.
call 3 in the morning, but we're available when people have emergencies. They have real problems. We're available around the clock, and you're going to get me, not some paralegal or somebody else. If it's 3 in the morning and you have a loved one that's being arrested and you need advice, I'm the guy you're
Right, you don't want to talk to a
Now,
receptionist.
Impaired
You'll
is
get
not-
my answering service first, but if it's that kind
Then
of
you'll call
hours, but
back.
then they'll connect you through or email me, and I'll get in touch with you. They try to connect me live if it's a pending emergency or something like that.
Now, impaired is not just alcohol, right? It's
Absolutely
also
not.
drugs too.
Correct. And it's going to be interesting. We'll see. We're not there yet, but what happens with medical marijuana, because that's
Yes.
going to be
Oh.
a huge issue with
It's already is in
DUI.
Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, they're finding
No, but it
people
passed,
driving
it's
5
passed
miles
in
an
Florida
hour.
now, right?
It hasn't passed.
Oh, it hasn't.
The only thing that's passed right now is a pill medication for children with epilepsy.
Oh, okay.
That has no effect of making you feel high or euphoric effect from the THC or cannabis.
I read a story that in Colorado that people are speeding, but they're driving like 10 miles an hour in the middle of the lane. But that is, you know what? I've heard that they're having all kinds of accidents there now, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. But any thoughts on?
I mean, I don't know, Steve. I think there are a lot of people there that wanted to smoke pot. Were smoking pot regardless
I
if it was
believe
legal
that,
or illegal. So I don't know how much. I'm sure there's an increase because there are people that said, "Well, I'd like to do it, or I did it in college, but now I'm an adult and it's illegal, so I'm not going to do it." And once it became legal, maybe they felt free to do it. But I think there was probably a large percentage of the population that was already doing it anyway. And
Probably so.
how much of an influx we'll see in those types of cases, I don't know. Obviously, I think a lot of people feel that alcohol, you're not supposed to drive, but they think, oh, it's just pot, it's fine. But look, if you're smoking, let somebody else drive. Try not to drive. It's just not safe. You don't want to hurt. Forget the criminal effects. You don't want to hurt yourself or somebody else, because most people do not do well living and coping with that. It's not an easy thing.
And does that show up in a breathalyzer as well?
No, but if they have a basis, they can request urine or blood. Blood is an interesting issue now because the United States Supreme Court came down with a case that it's not an automatic entitlement to blood, that they may need a warrant and that they have to prove exigent circumstances. It used to be they could just get blood under certain circumstances anytime, and now the Supreme Court has said just because it's a DUI doesn't automatically mean you don't need a warrant. So it's creating a new line of defenses. In fact, a number of lawyers are starting to file, because of that Supreme Court case, a motion saying that you need a warrant just for a breath test. Now, I don't think judges are going to easily go for that motion, but it's an interesting argument because they're saying making you shove something into your mouth and blow something out is intrusive, and that they should need a
Interesting.
warrant. So we'll see what happens with that.
I'm going to ask Michael this again, and I think it's really important to tell people why they should hire your firm. There's a lot of criminal attorneys out there. Besides just you have the experience, tell them why. And we're not just talking DUI now either. It could be drug possession. You do other things besides.
Yeah, I do everything. In fact, all those cases I told you about in the last week, where I've literally, had a dramatic effect and potentially saved these people's lives and careers, were all non-DUI matters. They're battery, domestic situations. One was a grand theft. He had a rental car. They picked it up, said he stole it when they screwed up the rental paperwork, and he had
Oh my
extended his
God.
rental. So, you never know. But the bottom line is, I'm aggressive. I stay on top of it. I'm honest with people. I know what I'm doing. I know the law. I don't just try to deal with the facts of the case, but I try to address and deal with the process and use every way to win. But when it comes to DUI especially, I'm not knocking anybody. There's a lot of good criminal defense lawyers out there, but I unfortunately feel that about 85% or so of the people that do what I do in criminal or DUI, they're burnt out, they don't care, they don't have the skill set, whatever it is. Once they get paid, they don't care, and they don't really fight once they've been paid.
Which is a really scary thought.
And that happens a lot.
Yes.
I will fight for my clients to the end. I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. If there's a way to win, I'm going to find it. And my success and outcome on my cases since I've been in private practice speak for itself, and I would put my numbers up against anybody. And the results I've had, the relationships I have with my clients, the way that I treat my clients, and the fact that my clients are my largest source of my referrals. I don't really
I
advertise.
love how passionate Michael is. Listen,
Listen, if I need a criminal attorney, I'm calling Michael.
no, but you see so much. A couple times I'll watch the Broward County Jail on the courts
Sure.
on the internet.
The magistrates, yep.
And wow, man, that would just driving, the things that you see on an ongoing basis, and you still have that passionate and that drive. That's the kind of attorney I'd want.
Absolutely.
I love what I do, and
can
if
tell.
there's something about your case that is so heinous to me, I'll refer you out. If I'm not going to fight for you, I'm not going to take your case just over money. So I have had somebody came to me. He was accused of molesting like 11 little boys in his apartment complex, and he didn't admit he did it, but he kind of inferred that he did. And I'm a father, and I wasn't going to fight for this guy. I sent him to somebody that does a ton of sex cases.
Right, morally, you couldn't even do that.
I wanted him to get the best. He's entitled to a defense, and my heart wasn't going to be in it. So
Right.
that's another reason I'm
Do you
going to fight
handle
for every
domestic
client.
violence?
Well,
Yep.
he just said that he
Well,
did, yeah.
because I'm saying next time, there's so much domestic violence going on, more than ever before. It's all over the papers. And I'd like to get into that a little bit next month. Michael's with us every month. He does our criminal talk show.
Give your phone number out once more.
Again, 954-523-2020. And Steve mentioned that he wanted to talk about people with cars and police officers, and we'll talk about that next month as
Because
well.
that can
We have
get
a
you put in
lot to
jail,
talk
too.
about with
I know.
Michael.
And give him your website again. I love your website.
Please, you can check us out at www.criminallawleader.com. We try to put some useful information on there and tell you a little about us and what we do.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Hey, join us again on Friday. We have Johnny Elias, family attorney, and we have a great home care company.
Right. Everyone have a happy and healthy new year.
Happy, healthy, folks.
Peace and love.
We're out.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show with Steve-O and Renee. Tune in every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. while some of the top local experts in their field from Broward and Palm Beach counties educate you in the areas of law, health, financial, and home improvement. You can also call our offices at 888-574-6999 to become an expert on our show.